Good morning, Commissioner Bookland.
Good morning, Janelle. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
Good morning, Commissioner Eskridge.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Commissioner Havel.
Good morning, Janelle.
Thank you so much. We hear you great.
Okay, it's 8 o'clock. I think we have 5 members present. So officially we have a
6.
quorum. Oh, Beth, I see Beth now, so that's 6. Okay.
Wilson's here.
Thank you, Commissioner
7.
Wilson.
Okay, Tom Wilson now, yeah. You gotta scroll through all the people. Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. And let's see, I gotta get the scroll up here for the agenda. Welcome to all of our guests. Janelle, would you like to go through the virtual meeting guidance, please?
Certainly. Good morning, commissioners, members of the public, and staff. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I thought someone said something. To help us have a smooth meeting, I'm going to review just a few decorum rules for all to please follow. Number 1, please ensure your microphone is muted unless you are speaking. Number 2, please state your name before speaking. Number 3, for those who are speaking, please have your cameras on if possible. You may turn your cameras off if you experience technological challenges. And number 4, as a reminder, the public chat has been disabled, but you can still send messages to the host, and this meeting is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube. With that, thank you, and let's have a great meeting, everyone. Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. Michael, do you have any announcements?
I don't have any announcements.
Okay, that will take us to appearances by the public. Is there anybody at the public that's in attendance that would like to speak? Anybody from the public that would like to speak? Okay, I don't see any hands up or anything, so we'll move on to the consent calendar where we have several items. We've got the reapproval of resolution to approve transaction amounts for laboratory services for the PFAS testing analysis. The meeting minutes from the 26th of October, cash statement capital fund, cash statement debt service fund, the review and approval of sanitary sewer extension plans. There's basically one, Acacia Ridge, Madison. Review of bids and award of purchase for 2024 fleet vehicle. Review of bids and award of contract increase in total project cost, primary tank 6 rehabilitation project. And then another review of bids and award of contracts for Nutanix support and maintenance for your renewal. Do we have any questions on any of those items before we get a motion? Okay, I don't see any questions arising. So somebody wish to make a motion?
This is
It's
Commissioner
Wilson.
Freeze. Go ahead, Tom.
It's Wilson. I'll move approval of the items on the consent agenda as noted.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Wilson. Do we have a second?
I'll second that. This is Commissioner Freeze.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Freeze to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? None. Motion carries. Okay. That will take us to our topics. We have 3. The first is a public hearing and petition boundary annexation, Daentl Road industrial area in DeForest and town of Burke. Michael, you're going to lead this more formal process off.
I will. We will maybe make a motion to have a public hearing, and then what I will do is I'll facilitate the public hearing process.
Okay, I'll call the public hearing to order on the annexation request for Daentl Road. I don't think we need a motion on that.
We're fine. We're fine. So this is an annexation hearing, and the way we've structured, the way the commission is structured these hearings is we will have staff, Kurt Sauser, provide information on the application. And then our district council will ask any clarifying questions. And then we will ask the applicant to provide comments and also be available to answer questions about their application to the commission. And then it will be opened up for the commissioners to ask questions and then for public comment. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kurt Sauser, who will present on behalf of the district.
Good morning, everyone. Is my screen? Is that visible?
We can see it, Kurt.
Yep.
Okay, great. So I am going to present on the Daentl Road industrial area this morning and go over the 10 exhibits that relate to this annexation that were made part of the agenda packet. And I'll describe the details of each of those exhibits now. So Exhibit 1 is an affidavit of publication confirming that the subject petition request was published in the Wisconsin State Journal on October 25th and November 1st, 2023. This confirms that the statutory requirements for a Class 2 notice have been met. Exhibit 2 is a certificate of the administrative assistant of the district dated October 24th, 2023, of the mailing notice and the list of all persons to whom the notice was sent as required by law. Exhibit 3 is an annexation petition from the Village of DeForest dated August 18th, 2023, and submitted to the district on September 25th. The petition seeks to add approximately 121.8 acres to the district's service area. The documentation includes the village's ordinance attaching territory from the town of Burke to the Village of DeForest, and also a letter of support from the town of Burke administrator. Exhibit 4 is a letter from the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission dated October 3rd, 2023. This letter indicates that the lands in the annexation petition were made part of the Northern Urban Service Area through amendments approved by the Wisconsin DNR in 2001, 2007, and 2023. And also that this annexation to the MMSD service area would be consistent with the adopted regional plans, assuming that the conditions of DNR approval will be met as part of the proposed development and sewer extension review process. Exhibit 5 is a map of the annexation area that was prepared by MMSD. The area shaded red shows the annexation request from the Village of DeForest, approximately 121.8 acres in size. The existing MMSD service area boundary is shown by a solid green line. The municipal boundaries delineating the villages of DeForest and Windsor and Town of Burke are shown by an orange dashed line. The lands included in the annexation petition are within the Village of DeForest and Town of Burke. The annexation parcel is part of a cooperative plan between the Town of Burke, Village of DeForest, City of Sun Prairie, and City of Madison, dated January 5th, 2007. That plan establishes future boundaries between DeForest and Madison and between Sun Prairie and Madison, and will result in the eventual dissolution of Burke in 2036. Vacant lands adjacent to the proposed annexation to the west and south are generally rural agricultural parcels and do not seek to connect to the public sanitary sewer system at this time. Exhibit 6 is a document titled MMSD Guidelines for Orderly and Efficient Addition of Territory to the District, adopted by the Commission on May 11th, 2001. When analyzing the proposed annexation against these criteria, the annexation is deficient by creating a gap in the district service area northeast of the interstate highway, as identified with exhibit number 5, which is shown here on the screen. A gap in the district service area boundary will exist until the lands at the southwest quadrant of highways 51 and 19 are annexed to DeForest and developed. Exhibit 7 is an excerpt from the district sewer use ordinance, specifically section 3.4.1 on costs related to annexation charges. The 2023 fee for a petition annexation requiring a public hearing is $3,475. It is appropriate that the petitioner pay the annexation charges related to these proceedings. Exhibit 8 is a document titled District Regulations, District Connection Charges, Conveyance Facility Connection Charges, and Treatment Plant Connection Charges. The approval of the annexation should be conditioned on following these regulations. Exhibit 9 is a table of current 2023 and future 2024 MMSD connection charge rates. Specifically, I refer to line item 24 that represents the Northeast Interceptor Highway 19 Extension Basin rate, which relates to this annexation. Exhibit 10 is the Wisconsin statutes chapters 200.01 through 200.15, which relate to these proceedings. Based on my technical review of the application and documents provided to me, it is my opinion that the annexation is consistent with the requirements of Wisconsin statute 200.15 sub 2. In particular, that the annexation will promote sewerage management policies and operation and will be consistent with adopted plans of municipal, regional, and state agencies, and that the annexation will promote public health and welfare and will affect efficiency and economy in sewerage management based on generally accepted engineering standards regarding pollution prevention. And that is all I have to present today. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you, Kurt. Anybody have any questions for Kurt? Tom?
Yeah, just a simple question, Kurt. You know, I couldn't tell from the map and I didn't drive out there. Are there any current buildings that would connect to this, or is it all going to be new construction, new commercial construction?
I think the applicant could probably answer that question better, but I know there was a residence in the town of Burke, kind of a flag parcel to the southwest that may be connecting. But I'll let the applicant describe that in better detail.
Hi, good morning, commissioners and staff. Thank you for having us this morning. My name is Bill Chang, the village administrator here in DeForest, representing the village. And we also have Mark Roffers, our village planner, with us this morning. In regards to the question that had been asked, there is indeed a flag residential. We don't believe that residential unit intends to connect at this time. That was actually a point of emphasis with our discussion with the town of Burke.
Thanks, Bill. I was just curious. I mean,
Sure.
it doesn't make any difference on how I plan to vote or anything on this. It makes sense to me and is appropriate. And thanks for all the documentation. And you and Mark did a good job as usual with what you were working on. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Brad,
Commissioner
you have a
Murphy?
question?
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes, thank you. I'm just having a hard time unmuting myself. I don't have any concerns about the annexation, plan to vote for it. But I just couldn't tell from the map where the gap was. I just was unable to just unable to tell. Actually, I was having a hard time reading the map, and it has nothing to do with that I suspect the technical accuracy of the map. It's just that in this area of the metropolitan area, you've got all sorts of interesting boundaries, and when you look at the relationship between the town boundaries, the village boundaries, the city of DeForest boundaries, the city of Madison boundaries, urban service area boundaries, and the MMSD boundaries, I just couldn't tell where that gap was. But anyway, I don't really care either. I just couldn't read it. So just I'm not sure if there's another graphic that you can show, Kurt, or not, but it's not overly important to me. I just wanted to let you know that I was having a hard time.
I could show that slide again quickly and point that out just for clarification. So just a moment here.
Okay, great.
So yeah, for the gap area, it would be north and east of the red shaded parcel. So it is this
Okay.
There's 80 acres here and close to another 80 acres to the east of that. So this at this quadrant of the intersection of Highway 19 and Highway 51, those lands are agricultural. They are in the town of Burke, not yet in the village of DeForest, but they may be added to the village at some time soon. So.
Right. Okay. And at least by 2036.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Roffers, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you very much, and good morning. That acreage, it's 151 acres, and it was in fact recently annexed to the village of DeForest, pursuant to the same boundary agreement that Kurt mentioned earlier. And we would expect to be before the MMSD board, I would within the next several months, requesting that be added to the service territory of MMSD after going through the urban service area process.
Thanks,
Thank
Mark.
you.
Kurt, I've got a question. If you could go back to that map, is that area that's to the west of the farmland that was just annexed in the district? That's all developed. That's got the it says Northern
USA.
I can't read the road that goes down into that, but
yes, that is in the town of Burke, but it is served by the district. Yes.
right. Okay. So essentially the one area that is just that there's not a significant amount of land, and that's so you got an area that's in the district And that to the area to the east is out, but then the area to the west you're bringing in. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions by legal counsel or by members of the commission? Mr. Kent, are there any questions on your?
I have no further legal questions. I've reviewed this in light of the statutory standards, and I have no further questions.
Okay, Mr. Chang, or would you have any more questions or comments you'd like to make? And then I'll turn it over to a question by Commissioner Rummel.
Yeah, just simply that we're happy to be here this morning. We are asking for the annexation of the Daentl area, industrial area, to be annexed to the MSC. And again, we appreciate the opportunity to come before you.
Thank you. Commissioner Rummel.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question out of curiosity as a newer member, but in the CARPC letter where there, the little chart about there's one X where, because of the gap, I guess, I'm just curious, like when it is that CARPC would say, oh no, it doesn't meet standards. It's obviously more than one check, but just as for background for me to understand. Whoever can answer, thanks, Kurt.
So yeah, I go through that chart. So I those checks are those are the criteria that were set by the commission. Those aren't CARPC standards, and those are guidelines that the commission likes to follow, but they aren't hard and fast rules as to whether or not annexation should be approved or not. So I just like to provide that background to the commissioners to weigh that against the rules that they put in place and let you guys make a good decision.
So at some point we could say there's too many X's, but you might not even bring that forward.
That's right.
At that point. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rummel. Commission President Hubble.
Yeah, Kurt, were you saying it was number 2? Proposed additions should be defined to prevent gaps within the overall district boundaries. Is that the one you were saying that it was missing?
Yes. So yes, it creates a gap in the district boundary, but yeah, it sounds like that gap will be very temporary, and there's already an effort underway to bring those lands into DeForest, into the urban service area, and will be developed. So yeah, I think that gap will only be will be temporary for will just be temporary. Yes.
Because the gap was existing even with the current urban service area.
Yes.
With the current district boundary, it still exists. So
correct.
Okay, but I do know I was on the commission when we did that, and one of the ideas was to try to have sensibility, so you're not having request after request of small areas being brought in, or rather do larger areas. So, but it sounds like they're going to cure that within the next few months anyway.
Okay. It will. It's an important criteria for the orderly and efficient extension of sewer service, that we don't have the leapfrogging effect of developments, and that's why the commission put that in place. And we use our judgment to say, are we meeting the intent of that? And with this request by the applicant, it is meeting that intent, or it will very in a short period of time. Commissioner Murphy.
Oh, just when you said it was a gap, I was just looking at it and thinking that, well, it seems looks like an island where the land is going to be completely surrounded by the sewerage district, and with given the intergovernmental agreements that are in place and the recent annexations by the town of DeForest, I think this makes a lot of sense, and the island's going to probably disappear in a very short amount of time. So anyway, I'm prepared to make a motion unless there are any other questions.
Okay, well, let's,
Commissioner,
anybody have any other comments, and I'll close the public hearing?
Let me ask that question also, Commissioner or President Hubble, if there's any members of the public that would like to make comments. I'm not hearing any. So I'll turn it back over to you, President Hubble.
Okay, so I'll close the public hearing, and then we'll move to item B, the discussion and approval of the petition boundary annexation. So Brad, you were going to make a motion?
I'll move approval of the annexation.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Murphy, second by
It's Wilson. I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Wilson to approve. Any further discussion? I think we've had a good discussion on this, and that kind of island that will be created will probably be cured within the next few months, as it's been recently annexed, and it doesn't disturb our efficiency in sewer service. So I don't see a problem with it. Okay, anybody else have any comments or discussion? Okay, seeing none, we don't need a roll call on this, do we, Michael?
Do not.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the annexation, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to seeing your additional annexation request. Okay, that will take us to 4C, a review and approval of the Stafford Rosenbaum agreement for general legal services. Michael?
I'll take this one. Thank you, President Hubble. Before you for action is approval of a 3-year agreement for general legal services with Stafford Rosenbaum. They have been our consulting attorney since 2013, when we went through a competitive process to select attorney for the district. And at that time, there was a member of the commission on the selection panel with me and other staff to make that selection. From time to time, I come before you to revise the services for Stafford Rosenbaum. And I'm here again to adjust their hourly rate and also their retainer hours for the district. Retainer is a very important thing for the district because we have to make sure that when we have legal counsel that they have reserved time to provide sufficient services for us. And over the last few years, they have provided in the agreement 30 hours per month of general legal services. And you'll see through some of the data I've provided last year and this year, they've been providing more than 30 hours of general legal services on average. And that's why I'm here to recommend an increase from 30 to 35 hours. Their fees have also not been adjusted for 3.5 years. So I'm recommending that the hourly rate that gets calculated and used for the fees also is increased somewhat. And it represents about a 9.5% increase over the last 3.5 years. So it's a reasonable increase. We also rely on Stafford Rosenbaum to provide special legal services. And these services are for projects that go above and beyond what would be included in general legal services. And those are decisions that I make on an individual basis, and they provide those services. And some years we don't have any special legal services. Other years, like this year, we have several. The hotline was a big project for us, the employee hotline that we needed Pam Plur and Paul to engage in. And also Badger Milk Creek compliance is another example of a project that required an extensive engagement by Stafford beyond the average amount. My budget for legal services has been standard or the same over the last couple of years. I've not increased it. And in next year, I have $180,000 in the budget for legal services, and that'll be sufficient to handle these increases. as they were anticipated. And with that, I will turn it over. You may have a question of why don't we put this out for request for proposal like other consulting contracts, and legal services they're an extension of staff. And it's not just Paul Kent, but Vanessa Wishart and 5 other attorneys and partners are working across the organization on a daily basis. And their knowledge of our laws, our sewer use ordinance, and our regulations is just critical for continuity and service to provide sufficient legal services. So that is why we do not put out an RFP regularly on these types of services, because of how disruptive it would be in terms of moving all the legal files over from one firm to another. The other thing that Stafford Rosenbaum does a really good job at is they, well, it's not a good job, but it's where they are. They're right in downtown Madison, so they're very accessible to us. And from a water law standpoint, they are the preeminent water law attorneys in the state. That's my opinion, and I'm sure others would share that opinion. And they provide really good services to us. So with that, I'll open it up to questions, and I see Commissioner Freese has a question. Go ahead.
And let me just interject real quick. And I would direct this perhaps to President Hubble. If you all would like to have this discussion with Vanessa and I offline, we would be glad to step out and step back in. I will leave that up to you, but we're also very willing to answer questions if you have any. So I will leave that up to you, Commissioner Hubble.
Well, it's an open meeting, Paul. I thank you for the offer, but I think it's just fine that you and Vanessa are here. It's part of our open discussion, so I don't see why you should have to leave, because you'd be able to be attending anyway. So we have both Tom and Greg. I think Tom's hand was up first. We'll go to Tom.
Thank you.
Commissioner Freese.
Yeah, it's Wilson. I'm not having my picture up because my wife actually working at the same time, and since she's in healthcare, I'm letting her have the ability to have more bandwidth in our house. So a couple things. One is that Michael kind of hit this on the head. I just wanted to mention this because I look at the bills every month. I don't know that everybody knew that. I've been doing that for quite a while. Jim Martin used to do it, and I kind of decided that I would look at them too. And it is amazing the amount of work and the attorneys that are involved at Stafford, from a month-to-month basis on that. And the other thing that you might all get a kick out of is, working for MMSD might be as close to being a general practitioner as you possibly could be as an attorney. You've got contract issues, employment issues, land use issues, condemnation issues, and the issue, it goes on and on, dealing with healthcare. It's crazy. So to have a firm like Stafford that's local with the wonderful expertise that they have, I have no issues with this, with the increase in the rate. I do think it's important that we maintain a steady relationship with the attorneys. They do work for Yahara Winds as well. I believe it would probably affect that relationship as well. And we'd sort of like to maintain that longevity as well. And the 2 attorneys from Stafford that are on here, Paul wanted to get off the line. I'm like, Paul, no, you want to stay on so people can tell you how good you guys are. Especially Paul with, as Michael said, his water law experience and the firm's ability to be involved in legislative issues has been increased over the last few years. So they really know what's going on, and we can head off anything that might come our way, or deal with it in a better way. And I'm certainly think that the increase, although it seems a lot, it's not for the legal services that we get, and I am certainly in favor of this. And I see no reason to pursue the other options. But that's my 2 cents worth. And like I said, I do see the bills every month. I look at them. I actually do look at them, Sarah, because I know what you're thinking. And they really are extensive, specific with each lawyer that's involved in it, the specific time that they deal with. It's not like a bill for general services just because it's done. We bill the way it's billed, right? Or we pay the way we pay. We could very easily just get a bill that says, here's your $8,500, and that's what we did. They don't do that. So I appreciate that. So thanks, everybody.
Okay, Greg, then Ken.
Okay, so Tom said most of the stuff that I would have said, but I will reiterate that for both Paul and Vanessa, I have the greatest respect for them, and I agree with the statement that they are, largely the preeminent people in this field. So I am a fan of this. I did have one technical question just with regard to, so I have no desire to bid this out, but I am curious if Madison Met has any requirement to bid this out after a certain period of time, given the price. So for my experience, right, the council and Commissioner Rummel would know about this, can do a sole source contract, right, can take that action. But usually, and we have similar contracts in engineering where I work, where continuity, although not quite as critical, is important for our soil testing contracts and some contaminated stuff that we do that, it is not absolutely critical, but certainly helpful to have a continuity and some institutional memory that goes on. And we can extend those contracts and often do for 6 and sometimes even 9 years. But usually after like 9 years, we are directed to put out a new RFP. So that was a long way of saying, is there a legal requirement, which maybe Paul and Vanessa can answer, for the district to put this out for bid at some point? Thank you.
I can, before Paul answers the legal part of that question, from a procurement code standpoint, I do have the ability as a chief engineer to provide an exemption. It's in our procurement code, and that is outlined in the 4th or 5th whereas clause in the resolution, to use based on disruption of service and such. And that's the determination I am making here. And so that's the procurement code that we follow. But Paul, are there any legal constraints we should be aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. And obviously our services are different than the services that would be undertaken for like a construction project, which is a specific project for a specific, time period. So I can double check that, but as far as I know, there isn't a specific requirement. Obviously, as a matter of policy, the district could from time to time choose to do that, but I don't think there's a requirement.
Okay, thank you. And again, I was not trying to imply in any way that I wanted to do that. I was just asking that question, and I missed that in the resolution, Michael, so I apologize. I should have seen that.
Okay, Ken and Mark.
I'm glad to hear Commissioner Wilson reviews those invoices. I think he's got the perfect background for that. Michael, the rates I feel are competitive in the marketplace. Maybe this is in the information, but is the $325 an hour, is that locked for the 3 years?
It is.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Rummel, did you have a question? You took your hand down.
I was just going to admit that I did not realize that Paul and Vanessa were not district employees until today. So it's not really clear to newbies. So I'm glad they're here. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank everybody for their comments. I think it's appropriate to continue with the law firm. It's not like it's a construction project or even engineering where you can bid out we have different engineering projects here. We need to have the continuity of services to continue. And so we've had them, I think, for 10 years now. And the prior firm was actually Brynelson. And there's a lot of changeover that has to occur. If you move from one firm to another, there's a lot of files and information and And you kind of lose that institutional memory as well. So I think it's appropriate to do this. So do we have any other discussion before we get a motion? I guess we can get a motion.
Okay, it's Wilson, Tom. I will make a motion that we approve the Stafford Rosenbaum LLP agreement as presented for general legal services.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Wilson to approve the agreement with Stafford Rosenbaum LLP. Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Bookland. I'll second it.
Okay. Second by Commissioner Bookland. So we have a motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Bookland. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, motion carries. Okay, thank you. Welcome aboard again, Vanessa and Paul. Then we'll move to the Chief Engineer and Director's Report, CED update. Michael?
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners, for that action. I appreciate it. And I have two items. One, at the meeting last week, I provided really good news on our recent solar expansion project, and Commissioner Freeze had a question that I couldn't answer, and that was, what is the return on investment for this project? And the investment will yield more savings than costs, and will recover our costs in 6 years before the expected lifespan of the equipment. And the expected lifespan is 25 years. I do want to point out, though, that if electricity is more expensive, that payback period will be even better in the district's favor. And it does not account for the avoided cost for reduced carbon emissions. And if we did that type of an analysis, the payback would be, in terms of the environmental costs, would be much better and much more positive. So I did want to follow up on that, and I want to pause there to see if there are any other thoughts or questions about this.
Ezra, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thanks, Michael, for looping back on this. Quick question would be, are we cash financing this project, or is it something that we're debt financing? I'm just kind of curious.
Oh, geez.
I think it's cash.
I don't recall.
This is Lisa. I think it's cash.
I know we're getting some grants for this project, but Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I think it is cash financing. We are getting some grants for it too.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for following up, Michael.
I appreciate it. The second item briefly is we had the third Badger Mill Creek stakeholder group yesterday morning. And it was a really good meeting. And the group is starting to move into defining what a healthy and resilient Badger Mill Creek looks like to the team. And we first had a presentation on stream health from Mike Sorge from the DNR, and then Kathy Lake gave a presentation on phosphorus compliance and helping the group understand a little bit more of our business and what was in the 1,000-page report that the commission has seen. They had really some good group discussions about defining what that definition looks like, and that will be critical for us as they start to narrow down a focus on what types of projects that they will support and that we will present to you, what success looks like. So it was a good meeting, and more to come on that, but I wanted just to give you a brief update on those meetings are continuing in a really good tone in the meetings, and I thought just really good engagement. So with that, I'll turn it over back to you, President Hovell, and the agenda. That's all I have for my update, at least.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Lisa, you have a capital projects update? We haven't had one of these quite some time, so it'd be good to hear what's up.
I sure do. I'm just gonna share my screen. Okay, can you all see that?
Yes.
And you can hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right, excellent.
Well, good morning, commissioners. I'm Lisa Coleman. I'm the Director of Engineering, and I'm very pleased today to present the long-awaited capital projects update. I want to take some time today to tell you about the current projects we have underway and all the great work that staff is doing on all those projects. I know it's been a bit of time since we've done one of these comprehensive updates, and I want to thank you for giving me a little bit of grace and allowing me some time to get up to speed on all these projects before I made an attempt to present them to you. So, jumping right into it, in 2024, we're anticipating spending about $45 million on capital improvement projects. And the projects I'll talk about today are treatment plant projects, interceptor projects, and then pumping stations and force mains. So I'm going to go through the projects in our talk today. For our talk today, I've grouped them into where they are in the process. So whether they're in construction, in design, or in planning. So I'm going to start with the current construction projects. So what projects do we have under construction currently? I've listed here the 6 projects that we have from the highest total project cost to the lowest total project costs. I haven't recreated the fancy maps that Bruce Borelli used to do, but I have used sort of the stoplight colors here to give you a status on things. So the green means things are more or less on target. The yellow means not requiring action just yet, but kind of closely monitoring. And then red is something that would require course correction. So of these 6 construction projects, for the ones that are indicated in yellow here, those are all kind of schedule related. So all 3 of those involve mechanical and electrical equipment, and supply chain issues from the pandemic are still having effects on procurement of equipment. So I'm going to talk more in detail about some of these projects. I'm not going to talk about every single one, but I'll hit on the major highlights of some of those in the slides that follow. So before I get into the details on some of the projects, though, I wanted to give you a general overview of the pumping station 17 area, as I'll be talking about 4 different projects today that relate to this. So we've been working on several projects to upgrade the service area to pumping station 17. When pumping station 17 was built in the 90s, it took the place of the Verona treatment plant and was anticipated to serve a smaller service area. But as we know, there's been lots of growth, and there's lots more growth anticipated in this overall gray area of the which is the partially city of Madison, partially town of Verona, partially city of Verona, and also town of Middleton. So planning for all this growth has been ongoing for decades. And some of the northern parts of this ultimate pump station 17 service area developed earlier, and there was a kind of a temporary solution implemented at that time by the city of Madison. So they have a local pumping station, the Midtown Lift Station, which pumps to a different out of the sewer shed to a different pump station. And this was built as kind of an interim solution until the future district pipe interceptor could be built to convey all that flow via gravity down to pump station 17. So, and Commissioner Freeze probably knows way more about that than I do. So he remembers when all that was happening. And I actually remember when some of that was happening when I worked at the city too. So, the first couple gravity projects the first couple of projects that are going to come into play that I'm going to talk about are the Lower Badger Mill Creek Interceptor, which is the gravity pipe that conveys all the flow through the sewer shed down to pump station 17. So this began to be planned in the early 2000s, and now we're building and designing the last 2 segments of it. So once that interceptor is built, then, when the pipe is all in here, then the limiting factor then becomes the pumping capacity here at pumping station 17. So capacity improvements at the station itself are another project that I'm going to talk about in a little bit here. And finally, then once we can get all the flow to the pumping station, and then we can adequately pump from the pumping station, then the limiting factor becomes an additional needing an additional force main to take all of that additional flow eastward over to pumping station 12. So in summary, that's a lot of projects there, but in summary, the 4 projects that we'll talk some more about at various times during the slideshow here are the 2 legs of the Lower Badger Mill Creek Interceptor, which are phases 5 and phase 6, and then pumping station 17 project here, and then the pumping station 17 force main relief phase 2 project. So we'll talk about, as I mentioned, we'll talk about those separately, but first let's talk about the force main project because that's currently under construction. So pumping station 17 force main relief phase 2. This is the first construction project underway that I want to give a little bit more details about. This is a relief force main, meaning that we already have 1 force main and now we're building a second for additional capacity. So you may recall that we completed the first phase of this project in 2022. To the west of here, here's a map that kind of shows where the force main goes. So the phase 1 project was over here to the west of here and extended from pumping station 17 in Verona up to this point here at the end of the second phase. So that project was completed in conjunction with the city of Verona leading the project because they were at the same time building their East Side Interceptor project. So the current project is then picking up where we left off and completing the rest of this pipe. As far as scope, this project is about 8,000 feet of 24-inch force main. So that's the red in the map down here. And 3,300 feet of interceptor, which is the green here. So that's basically, it's pumped through here. And then when it gets to this point, it flows downhill via gravity here to where it hooks up with the Nine Springs Valley Interceptor and then flow heads off to the east there. So with regard to schedule and status, construction started just this month. So that's very exciting. We've been working on this for a long time. Probably most of the pipe work will start in January. Now they're just kind of getting set up and mobilizing, doing some of that kind of stuff. But the real serious construction probably isn't going to start till about January. And they will start with this crossing of, this is 151 here, and also PB. So this is a pretty significant tunneling effort that's going to need to occur underneath those roadways. And here's a picture of a different project where we were doing some tunneling. So that'll be very interesting to see how that goes. The contractor, well, I guess back to schedule, they'll start that part in January. They'll work westerly in this western area initially. And then we're expecting substantial completion of the whole thing in May of 2025. And then with final completion in August of that year. So this is going to take a little while here. The contractor is Menger Construction, and they are the same contractor that won the bid for the first phase. So I think that's good news. They're kind of familiar with what we're trying to do here. So the total project cost for this project is about $12 million. You might recall when we accepted bids, we increased that a bit from 10.5 million. So Menger's contract is about 9.4 million. And then, as you might recall, we're also getting some reimbursement from the city of Verona and the town of Verona for some related work that they are doing in the same contract as us. So you might recall we had an intergovernmental couple agreements with them that came through commission as well. So one of the nice features about this project is that we worked with a lot of other partners to make improvements along the route that will happen during the project, and some of them will happen after the project too. So here's a map that shows some of those improvements, and our project engineer Rachel worked really hard with all these stakeholders to facilitate all of this. And some of the improvements, I won't go into them in detail here, but some of the improvements are City of Verona is doing this paved path over here, which, is part of that cost sharing we talked about. And the Ice Age Trail folks are working with us to relocate the Ice Age Trail through here. And there's also a number of native plant restorations that will happen during or after the project in conjunction with the county and the Friends of the Badger Mill Creek Environmental Corridor. So I think it's going to turn out really nice. So some of the restorations are like prairie restorations, and then there's an oak tree line restoration that's going to happen too. All right. Switching gears, let's talk about a construction project that was just completed. And you should see an acceptance of work item for this one coming soon. So this is pumping station 13 and 14 rehabilitation. And both of these pump stations are on the far northeast side of Madison. So pumping station 14 is up here on School Road, and then pumping station 13 is down here on Amelia Earhart, right by you can see the runways here for the Dane County Airport. So this is Stoughton Road here, and this is the airport runways over here. So so the scope of this project was replacing pumps and Venturi flow meters, lots of major electrical and control equipment for the stations. HVAC, you'll see this on some of the other slides, but HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, air conditioning replacement. And we also added new emergency generators at these stations with diesel tanks that go with those, doing some watt well repairs, and then some building and site work on these stations. So the project began in October 2020. So that was a while ago. This project was kind of one of the first inklings that we had of the supply chain issues that came along with the pandemic. So we had some major equipment delays on this project. We had some pumps and motors that took quite a long time to come in, and some of the electrical equipment also took quite a long time. So when we bid it in 2020, it was intended to be done in May of 2022. But with all the procurement delays and other things, it was substantially completed in January of this year. So it's been in service since January of this year. And then we've been working on punch list, closing out everything, and that should be, the punch list is actually complete. So final payment, you should see a acceptance of work and final payment coming through pretty soon, next month or early 2024. So the contractor on this one was CED Smith, and the total project cost is about 10.8 million, which is a little bit lower than I think what was in the budget earlier. The construction contract with CED Smith is about 9.2 million, and we had 22 change orders, but we're actually ending up with a credit, so negative change order. So that's good. The credit is because we actually had there was some allowances for contaminated materials removal and disposal, and some electrical work that didn't end up needing to be done, which we got a credit for. So that's good news. Okay, on to another pumping station project that's currently in construction. This one is pumping station number 4, which is on John Nolan Drive. You can see the location right here. So it's right by there's a Holiday Inn hotel right there across the street from the Lion Energy Center, and then the Holiday Inn's right here, and then a little bit over, the next neighbor over is the Sheridan Hotel. So kind of in that area, sort of tucked in there next to the Holiday Inn's parking lot. So you might not notice it unless you happen to be a commissioner, and then you probably would notice it. So the scope on this project is pumps, motor control center, instrumentation and controls, heating, ventilating, air conditioning work, another new emergency generator that we're adding at the station, and then some building and site work, including correcting a drainage issue. So at this one, this Holiday Inn parking lot has some runoff that runs towards the station that causes some problems. So we're going to correct that drainage issue with the project as well. So this one we bid it right around this time last year, issued a notice to proceed in January of 2023. We were hoping for substantial completion in June of 2024 with final completion in August of 2024. However, no surprise, we're now anticipating some delays due to supply chain issues, in particular the motor control center. is going to take a while to come in. So now we're anticipating that we will be complete in March 2025 with final completion in May 2025. So contractor there is JF Ahern, and the expected total project cost is 5.1 million, which is a little bit less than what's currently in the CIP. The original contract with JF Ahern is $3.8 million. And so far we've had one change order to date, which was a credit. However, we're expecting a fairly significant change order coming through with regard to a zoning approval with the city. So we need to add some screening for the HVAC equipment that's going to go up on the roof, and this electrical equipment over here, and the generator and tank that are going to be out here. So the fencing and the screening up on the roof are going to add a fair bit of cost. So there'll be another big change order kind of coming through on that one. So, all right. Okay, so the last in construction project that I'm going to talk about today is another one of those projects relating to Pumping Station 17 service area that I alluded to a little bit earlier. So this project is the Lower Badger Mill Creek Interceptor Phase 5. And again, this is the interceptor that carries flow down to Pumping Station 17. And for just a second here, I'm going to flip ahead to just give you an overall picture of that interceptor, and then I'm going to come back to this slide. So here we go. Okay, so this gives you a kind of an overall picture of what's already been built with regard to the Lower Badger Mill Creek interceptor. So this pink part up here is the part that the city of Madison built. And then here's the Midtown lift station here owned by the city. That's a temporary station, basically until the pipe gets built all the way up there. So city of Madison built this part up here. And then the district has been basically starting at Pumping Station 17 and working our way north here. So this first piece of the interceptor was built in 2006. That was phase 1. The second piece here was built in 2008. The third piece here was built in 2014. And then the fourth phase in 2018. And so the missing link here is the last piece of the pipe. And that is this yellow piece right here. So that's phase 5 and phase 6. So I'll flip back a little bit here and tell you more about phase 5. Whoops. There we go. Okay, so here's phase 5. So it's 3,500 feet of 30-inch interceptor, and there's 10 manholes. It's coordinated with current housing development that's being developed out there, which is Ardent Glen, which is a Viridian Homes development. This project began construction just last month in 2023. We're maybe 30%. I might have been a little optimistic there. We're probably a little bit less than 30% complete, but we're coordinating work with the first piece of development of the Ardent Glen development is kind of over in here, and they need to connect onto our sewer. And so we needed to get far enough along that they could make their connection this fall. So that was kind of the early part of the project to get them squared away. We're also have been coordinating with this is PD, and I should have oriented you a little bit more here. This is PD down to the south, and then this is Shady Oak here, the street. So we've also been coordinating with construction on Highway PD here. So PD is getting widened into like a 4-lane type configuration, and so was getting widened to the north. So we needed to kind of take care of some work down in here. With an earlier, you might recall, we had a approval earlier in the year for a phase 5A, which was like a little mini project to basically take care of a sag in the pipe and get out of the way of Highway PD expanding here. So yeah, so coordinating with the development and with PD on this one. The contractor here is Integrity Grading and Excavating. The total project cost is $1.9 million, which when we accepted bids, you might recall we increased a little bit. And that also included that phase A that I was just talking about. The original contract with Integrity Grading and Excavating is $1.2 million, and so far no change orders on this one. right, we talked about this already. And then here's just a couple of pictures from construction. Construction pictures are always kind of fun. Here's putting a manhole in, and then Eric Jelen took these pictures. I think he should be our district photographer for construction projects because he takes really beautiful pictures. It's a really nice job lining things up here. Here is a picture looking south. Here's PD right here. And then you can see, looking towards the south, you can see all the cranes at Epic in the distance. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we're at out here. And then this picture here is just a picture superimposed of basically the housing development, and our pipe is in green here going through. So we coordinated our alignment with you know how things worked for their development, and then we also are coordinated so that we're actually under bike path for a fair bit of this development, which is good for us because it helps us with maintenance and access. So it's always a good thing. So, all right, let's move out of construction and into some current projects that are in design. So here's 8 projects that are currently in design, and they're listed again from the highest total project cost to the lowest. And I have them color coded again here with the stoplight colors. For the top yellow one, liquid processing, phase 2, that's one we're watching carefully for potential cost increases. The second yellow one involves electrical equipment, which most likely will have some of those supply chain delays that we've been seeing and talking about. And then the couple yellow interceptor projects also have some potential schedule delays, but we'll talk more about those as we go through the projects here. So let's talk some more about some of these in design projects. All right. First up is a big one, which is liquid processing improvements phase 2. So this one is at the plant. And the scope is really the second part of implementation of the liquid processing facility plan. So you might recall a couple years ago, we finished up liquid processing improvements phase 1, which had to do with a lot of hydraulic improvements, and also the infrared or the ultraviolet treatment system in the effluent building was addressed at that time. And then this is kind of the next chunk of work that goes with that liquid processing facility plan. So concerned mainly with the aeration system and the primary treatment infrastructure at the plant. So just pointing out here some of the critical parts of that we're talking about here. We're talking about these tanks here are the aeration tanks. So project isn't looking so much at wholesale replacement of those tanks, like the actual tanks themselves, but more like what is happening in those tanks with regard to the aeration equipment and the process stuff that occurs in there. And then what makes all the bubbles in the tanks, those are blowers, right? So the blowers live in the west blowers live in this building right here. And then the east blowers live in this building right here. And of course, there's all kinds of piping that takes the air from those places to where it needs to go. So, and then the last component I wanted to point out is right through here. This is where the arrow's pointing. That's the east primary influent channel. So that actually, before the wastewater flows into the primary tanks where a lot of the settling of solids happens, there's this channel that leads into those, and it has aeration equipment in it to basically keep the solids suspended before they have a chance to settle out in the next step in the process. And so that aeration equipment is in bad shape and unable to be repaired too. So the project also addresses that work. So if you are following along in the CIP or reading about these projects in the CIP, you'll see that when we talk about liquid processing improvements phase 2, you're not going to see that explicitly in the CIP. You're going to see 5 separate projects in the CIP that we kind of chunk together, working on kind of together, and call them liquid processing improvements phase 2. So the first of those is that project that I was just talking about, the east primary influent channel air piping. The next piece is low dissolved oxygen partial plant. So what's going on there is that, you know, as we are replacing this infrastructure, and at its heart, this is an infrastructure replacement project. One key question is if we can modify our activated sludge process to use less aeration and potentially lower effluent total nitrogen. And so you'll hear talk about low DO processes. That's low dissolved oxygen processes. It turns out that low DO is relatively new territory in the wastewater world. There's not a lot of analogous plants, and really all plants are unique anyway, and all waste streams, all that kind of stuff. So the partial plant project here is really, once if we're able to settle on a low DO option, we would like to try it in a smaller part of the plant before we implement it full scale. So that's what that partial plant project is. It's basically a pilot plant. Using our existing tankage, but just trying a little bit different process there. So assuming that that goes well, then we would move into full plant. So then we would be trying to roll out that into all of the process and not just one pilot plant area. So, and then not to be forgotten are the west blowers and switchgear and the east blowers and switchgear. So for all of this, what we're looking at is design year 2050. And this one has it's a pretty big project with all of these projects. It's a $51 million project for all 5 of those. I forgot to mention, I'm looking at my notes here. I forgot to mention the vintage of the blowers. So the east blowers are 60s vintage and varying ages. So some of that equipment's getting pretty old. And then the west blowers are all also getting pretty old. They've been operating for more than 35 years. So all of those blowers, it's time for them to be replaced. So, all right. So as far as schedule on this project, we began the alternatives analysis for the project earlier this year. We're working with Strand and Brown and Caldwell, and they're a team on the project. In 2024, we expect continuing the design, and the planned schedule then would be to construct and operate the pilot plant 2025, 2026 type timeframe, full plant somewhere around 2028, 2029. With all of that, we are considering trying to fast track the blowers and switch gears because of supply chain issues and because of the condition of those assets. We're trying to possibly fast track those to make that replacement happen a little bit sooner. So let's see here, where did I go? So with regard to the status, what we're looking at as far as the process changes, we're considering 5 different alternatives for biological nutrient removal, BNR, that's the acronym here. And one of those alternatives is our current process, which is shown up here at the top, which is the modified UCT high DO process. So that's modified University of Cape Town process. That's what we do right now. And I'm not going to go through all these process diagrams, but I'll just kind of go through the first one just so you have an idea of what's going on there. So the influent comes in, it goes into the primary settling tanks here. And then in those aeration basins that we were looking at before, it goes through several different zones. So it goes through an anaerobic zone, then it goes through an anoxic zone, then it goes through an aerobic zone. That's where you see all the bubbles happening. And then it goes then into the clarifiers where basically the activated sludge settles out, and then it's cycled back as RAS, you'll hear that term, which is return activated sludge, or it's wasted. So that's kind of what's going on with our current process. The second alternative we're looking at is something similar but less, basically doing the same thing but with less oxygen. And then we're looking at 3 other processes, which again, I'm not going to go through all these acronyms and all these flow diagrams. It can get pretty complicated pretty fast, but it's basically looking at the different configurations that you can do and the different treatment that you can do in those tanks. So is it, what zones are there? where is the return activated sludge going? What's the arrangement of the diffusers? How much air is going through there? What kind of sensors are you using for the process? What kind of valves do you have? How fast is the flow going through? Well, where, you know, are we adding other, this last one here, the AS&D, that's actually adding another parallel treatment train off of the existing one. So there's kind of a lot going on here that we're looking at. And looking at these alternatives. So, and also with all of these, we're beginning to work on the blowers. So the blowers are actually not terribly dependent on which one of these processes we choose, because no matter which blowers we pick, we still want to be able to do our current process and then potentially have the, you know, have better ability to turn down if we need to, but the blowers we choose aren't terribly dependent on which one of these alternatives we go with. So I will say that looking at these initial these alternatives we're looking at, initial results are indicating that the other alternatives, so not the alternative that we're currently doing, but the other alternatives might require a significant amount of new tankage, which would be like an entire additional treatment train over in the undeveloped west part of the plant, which could lead to some pretty significant cost increases. So further analysis there is ongoing. And I see Commissioner Freeze has his hand raised.
I do. Hi, Lisa. So you had to know there was going to be a technical geek question for me on this. So I'm curious. I'm sure that first of all, I am not aware of all these different processes, right? It's been a long time since college where I took this class, but I'm curious, when you look at these, they all probably have slightly different outcomes with regard to your effluent standards, right? The process makes certain things better, certain things worse. And I'm wondering, are you looking at what potential regulations are coming down the pike? You know, so if you make a change here and in 5 years, we get a nitrogen standard, say, from the DNR, right? Does that make it easier or harder for us, or for you, right, to then do the next step, right? That's really the question I'm asking.
Yeah, that's definitely something that they're looking at with, I'm not looking at that because that's beyond my technical skills too, but yeah, the team is looking at that, particularly with regard to nitrogen and what effect, you know, these processes have on that. Although it sounds like, you know, the discussion that I've been hearing is that probably nitrogen standard is a fairly long way out. So, but they are definitely looking at that with their modeling. They're using biowind modeling to kind of look at all that stuff.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. And that's all on liquid processing phase 1. But I'm going to move on here to another plant project, which is the electrical equipment service replacement. So I'm just going to kind of orient you on the map here where we are in the plant. So this is the northwest part of my map doesn't show a great. I'm going to see if I have a better map here. That doesn't have a good map either. But I'm kind of up in this area, up in the northwest part of the plant, where the MG&E's substation is over here, and then this is you just see the corner here of the entrance road where it curves when you come into the plant. So and then this is the effluent building here. So we're kind of between the effluent building and the entrance road into the plant there. So the purpose of this project is really to replace the equipment that steps down the voltage from the MG&E substation over here and feeds electricity to the entire plant. So the involved equipment here is switchgear H1, which is shown right here. It's in a little kind of enclosure here, and then switchgear S1, which is currently inside the effluent building, and then transformers 1 and 2, which are out here. And again, so transformers are kind of, I'm way outside my knowledge base here with electrical stuff, but the transformers are really kind of what steps down the voltage, and then switch gears are kind of like the electrical box at your house where you're turning stuff on and off, you know, and sending stuff to different locations in your house. So that's a really simplistic description, but kind of explains what we're talking about here. So except for really, really big ones, right? for the entire plant. So what we're looking at, that equipment is basically 80s vintage and beyond its service life. And so we're looking to upgrade all of that equipment. And so the selected alternative, we were able to basically reconfigure things so that we're eliminating the switchgear 1 or H1, sorry, gets rid of switchgear H1, and then we're replacing switchgear S1, which is currently in the effluent building. That will go in a new building outside because it's going to be too big to fit into the electrical room here. So this, and I'll show you some plans for that in just a second. So the schedule and status here, the design's about at 50% with Donahue, and we're hoping to bid this in the spring. This will be a project where we're going to have some long lead times to get equipment. We're expecting that the switchgear and the transformers are going to take maybe 24 months type time frame. And then we're hoping that construction on this is complete in mid 2026. So the total project cost on this one is about 13.7 million. So here's just kind of a sketch of what that configuration is going to look like. And so, as I mentioned, the new switchgear S1 is going to go in a new building out here, kind of tucked between the effluent building and the entrance road here. And then the transformers essentially go back kind of in the same location. So then the space that's freed up here in the electrical room in the effluent building saves some space for other electrical equipment that we know is going to have to get upgraded at some point, which is effluent pumps that are currently on the mezzanine can go then into this area. All right. Moving back out into the collection system. Now let's talk about the Northeast Interceptor Wanakee extension capacity improvements, phase 1. So just to orient you where we are in the world here, I always need a map or I don't feel like I know what I'm talking about. I gotta know where we are. So this is the Yahara River flowing into Lake Mendota would be down here. So we're up on the far north side of Lake Mendota. And then this is Highway 113 right here. And then this is Highway M right here. So or County Road M, I guess it is right here. So the scope for this one is really upsizing capacity for a developing area. And we are planning to build a relief sewer from the 113 M intersection up to Kennedy Road, and then a replacement sewer north of Kennedy Road. So in some areas we're adding a parallel pipe, and then in some areas we're upsizing the current pipe, basically. So in order to plan for this, we did take a wholesale look at that whole interceptor, not just the phase 1 part, just to make sure that what we're planning to do in phase 1 doesn't, shoot us in the foot for anything we're planning to do later, basically. So the phase 1 part will be the first part of the project that gets built. That's the part with the biggest capacity needs right now. And then, so that's phase 1. And then phase 2 will be a future project. And that is this blue part up here, kind of starts to go up into Wanakee here. And that is not slated until after 2030 or thereabouts. And then phase 3 is also, we looked at as well, but that's way out in the future, more like 2040. So phase 3 is in 2 different pieces, way up here at the northern end, and then down here at the south end, just north of the Yahara River. So as far as the schedule and the status of the phase 1 part of the project, the design's at about 60%. We're working with Strand. We're working right now on getting the design finalized and also working on easements. We're hoping to bid in the spring. and hoping to complete construction in mid-2025. So we've had a couple of public info meetings so far and have been coordinating with local folks out there. So there will be some coordination here with, this is Kennedy Road right here. And when Highway M is, there's going to be a construction project on Highway M next year. And so Kennedy Road will be a way for people to get through and avoid Highway M. So we're coordinating with that work so that we don't have both those roads closed at the same time. And then we're also coordinating with, there's the development occurring over here that also needs access via Kennedy Road. So because we're putting our pipe right down Kennedy Road, we need to coordinate with those other things that are happening so that we don't have the road closed when other people are needing to use it. So the total project cost on this one is about $12 million. And I'm just going to show you here on this next slide. I just want to take a larger look at kind of, I'm not going to go through all these, but this is kind of all the, through phase one here, this is kind of all the alternatives that we considered when we're selecting a route, and whether it's a relief sewer or upgrading the current sewer, that kind of thing. So with these, I sort of liked this, came from the public information meeting. This word scatter I liked because it kind of shows all the things that we have to take into consideration when we're selecting routes. So every project is unique and they all have unique constraints, and we need to kind of consider and balance all of these things when we're choosing where we're going to go. So, all right. On to another collection system project. So this one is the West Interceptor Shore Road Relief Phase 3. This one has been ongoing again for several years. As you can guess, phase 1 and phase 2 came before phase 3. So the West Interceptor is a complex network of sewers that extends all the way out to Middleton and Westport. And it's generally comprised of 2 or 3 parallel sewers that go from pumping station 2 and pumping station 8. Those are the ones that are in Brittingham Park and along Winger Creek. And the West Interceptor system then extends all the way west out from those points. So most of the West Interceptor has adequate capacity, but one part that needs more capacity is the part near the village of Shorewood that's shown here. And you can see the map at the top that shows the area we're talking about here. So phase 1 was the first chunk of work here, and that was from Indian Hills Park all the way over here past Blackhawk Country Club and through here all the way to Shorewood Boulevard. So that has been complete since, substantially complete since March 2022. There's been some kind of punch list and contractual items that are dragging out on that one, but we hope that one will be wrapped up very soon. And then all the construction work on the pipe actually has been done for quite a long time, but just little tail end stuff dragging out. Then phase 2 is right here. So that goes from around Marshall Court to University Bay Drive. Phase 2 began construction in May 2022. And it was done, we did not bid that one ourselves. That was bid in conjunction with the DOT work on University Avenue that's being done by Integrity Grading and Excavating. And as you know, that one, there's been some problems on that project with it being delayed. So at the end of 2022, last year, a lot of our pipe work still remained on the project due to the DOT's delays. But now, as of now, the actual work on phase 2 is substantially complete. So that pipe is in the ground and sitting there waiting to get connected to phase 3, which is the next project coming up here. So phase 3 is the blue, and it's actually in 2 different pieces. Well, it's actually the blue and red. So it's in 2 different pieces. Here's one piece right here. And then the second piece of phase 3 is right here. So all the way over here. So from going past the area in Shorewood by the pool and Marshall Court is the one little chunk. And then the other chunk is from roughly University Bay Drive all the way down to Walnut Street. So we delayed phase 3 to try to work with the DOT schedule to try to start in 2024 to let the DOT get their work complete on University Avenue, and yet the DOT that work still is continuing. So, but we think all is not lost. You know, we think their work should be complete next spring, 2024. And then we expect that our work then can start in May of 2024, once the DOT is complete. And we'll start our project at the east end. So we'll do this piece down here first. And then after the All City Swim Meet, which is occurring at the Shorewood, Village of Shorewood's pool, then we'll do this piece over here. So I'll talk about some of the bullets on the slides here. I was just kind of orient you all the different stages and where this all is, but I'll talk about some of this stuff here. So again, this is a relief interceptor that's in phase 3 is the last phase of the work. And it's really about capacity upgrades here. You might recall we had an item earlier in the year to add this additional little piece of pipe on here. We as we got into design, we realized that we thought the capacity was okay. And then as we looked at it closer, it was like, no, we really should do this part too. So you might recall an item earlier in the year where we added that scope onto the project. So with regard to schedule and status for phase 3, we're at about 50%. We're working on acquiring easements. We're hoping to bid in the spring, and then construction, as I mentioned, will be in 2024 and stretching into 2025. So challenges here are really coordination with everything else that's happening in this area. As you can imagine, there's a lot going on here. So we're trying to coordinate with the University Avenue Road construction project. There's also a bus rapid transit project that's happening through here that has a lot of traffic control impacts. That's the major challenge here is traffic control with all of these, with this very busy area and all these projects happening here. So, and we're also trying to coordinate obviously with the Village of Shorewood and their pool and the businesses there in Shorewood that will be impacted. So total project cost here for phase 3 is expected 7.6 million. And again, this is that one piece that's this piece here that's furthest to the east. This part is the sticky traffic control part, because we're going to be on the on-ramps for Campus Drive, the on-ramps and off-ramps here, and then also into Highland. And it turns out that all of these UW things and hospitals, the VA hospital, UW hospital, all that stuff, they really don't have awesome access. There's really just kind of this horseshoe. So when University Bay Drive is affected or Highland Avenue is affected, it really has a big impact on them. So we're doing our best to work with them and work through all those challenges. I see Commissioner Murphy has his hand up.
Yeah, I think you answered part of it. I was just curious that other than the crossing of Highland Avenue and the on-ramps and off-ramps, phase 3 is pretty much out of the drive aisles of University Avenue and Campus Drive. Is that true?
Correct. Yep. So it's really this west, well, this western part, or sorry, eastern part, yeah, that's really more about the on-ramp and off-ramp areas. There's a little bit that's close to University Avenue down here between U Bay Drive and Highland, but most of this is out of the main line of University Avenue. It's more the on-ramps and off-ramps in Highland, which is kind of sticky in and of itself.
That was only a personal concern about when I might be able to drive down University Avenue unencumbered.
Agreed. I just tried to pick up bagels at Bagels Forever for the swim team yesterday morning, and it was pretty sticky over there. So
so probably by the sometime in the spring of 2024, we expect University Avenue to be completely opened. Maybe.
We hope so. We hope so.
All right. Thank you.
All right. And then let's see. Also, here's just a zoom in of the other leg that I was talking about. That's more the Shorewood piece. These are they almost function like two separate projects, just with all the staging and traffic control and coordination. And this one really goes right by the Shorewood pool. There's a bike path back there, so we'll be along that bike path. There is a big oak tree here that we have hopefully found a way to go around, which will also be pretty tight. We'll actually be into the pool deck here. And then there's some coordination here with these businesses because we'll be into their parking lot as well. So lots of coordination in these tight urban corridors. All right. And now to another pumping station project, and this is one of those 4 projects with regard to pumping station 17 that I talked about at the beginning. So this is the last of them that I'll talk about, which is the actual, well, actually there's one more. I lied. There's one more coming up, but this is the third one, I guess. So this is the actual pumping station 17 project that's upgrading the station itself. So this station is located, here's kind of a map. It's located on Bruce Street in the city of Verona. It's where the old Verona treatment plant was located. And this station was built in 1994. The scope of the project is simply really to increase the capacity of the station and then any of the equipment that's basically, at the end of its life. So replacing pumps, variable frequency drives, motor control centers, the grinder equipment, there's heating and air conditioning equipment that needs to be replaced. There's a flow meter, and then some of the process piping and valves inside the station. So this one includes a large vault that'll connect to the new relief force main that we talked about earlier. And the scope of this one changed a little bit in 2022 to scale it down a bit to a capacity improvement. We're looking here to increase the capacity for the next 10 to 15 years. Beyond that, this station is going to be too small, and we're going to have to enlarge the station or build a new station. But there's an awful lot here that's still in decent condition, and so it doesn't make sense to totally, start from scratch at this time. We can still get a lot of life out of the station. So this is scheduled to bid next week after next. With approval of bids should be coming to the commission in January, and then we hope to complete this project in the first quarter of 2026. So total project cost here is $8.1 million. Commissioner Murphy's got your hand raised.
Oh, just curious, does pumping station 17 already have a generator?
Yes, it does.
And do you know if do all of our pumping stations now have generators, or are?
Nope, but we're working on it. The goal is that they will.
Okay.
That's another thing we're working on.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So here's some for the nerds in the group. Here's some plans that show kind of the guts of the thing, which is kind of fun to look at. I'm not going to go through a lot of detail here, but it is kind of fun to look at plans here. So looking, this is a view. This picture is looking down into the pump room at the station, and so you can see that this station is pretty tight quarters here. The pumps in the station are vertical pumps, so we tend to like better horizontal pumps now, but we're not able to fit them in this station, and so we're going to stick with the vertical configuration here. And here's a picture. Let's see, where will I start? I'll talk through this one a little bit just because it's kind of gives you an idea what's going on here. So here's the pumps, and then we've got process piping that basically takes the flow out, and then up here is, so the wall of the station is actually right here. So we're going outside. So when we go up these pumps out here, we're going outside. This is now in a big vault out in the exterior of the station. And this is basically where you can either send the flow to the existing force main, or you can send the flow to the new relief force main that we're building. So just kind of neat to see what that process piping looks like. There's a loop incorporated here so that you can this is the flow meter here. So if the flow meter is being worked on or something, you can send the flow out from the pumps this way. Or if everything is not being worked on, then you can send the flow this way. So there's a little redundancy here. There's valves and stuff to make that happen. So kind of interesting. And then here's just a cross section of the same thing. You know, for those of you that haven't been inside a pump station, when you come in upstairs at the control room, you walk down a lot of stairs to get down to the bottom where the pumps live. And so the wet well is over here. That's where all the flow comes into the station. And then it gets picked up here and pumped, and then it goes out through the process piping here, out through the wall. And then here's that utility vault that I was talking about, that where the flow can be split from either to use one or the other or both of those force mains. All right. And now back to the plant. Now we're at the flow splitter. So this is a critical flow control structure that's at the plant. It's near headworks, and it divides flow between the east and west plants. So this was constructed in 2005 with the 10th edition. It was inspected in 2021, and it was noted at that time that the concrete is degraded, likely due to hydrogen sulfide gas. So the degradation, we can see that in the pictures here. It's probably mostly near the water line, we think, we expect. And so I'm gonna flip to the next slide and show you a couple things, and then I'll come back to this slide. So, all right, so just to orient you, again, here's the plant, here's the headworks facility. The flow comes into headworks from the force mains here, goes through headworks, goes through the grit chambers, and then there's 3 pipes here that come into the flow splitter right here. And then the flow splitter can either send the flow to the west plant or to the east plant or to both, or any combination thereof. So I don't expect you to understand how this structure works. It's kind of complicated, but I thought it was kind of cool. Again, a little bit nerd here, fun to show some of the stuff about how this thing works. So if you look at the plan here, here's the plan. So these are the pipes that come from headworks, and then the flow comes in, it goes underneath here, and then it comes up here, and it spills over, these are weirs, and it spills over these weirs, and then into some channels right here. And the channels are where the magic happens. So the channels, there's some divider plates that you can reposition in these channels to allow you to either split the flow this way or split the flow that way. So if the flow goes this way, then it comes into this part of the structure and it goes out this pipe to the west plant. And then if the flow is split that way, it goes into this part of the structure, and then it goes out here to the east plant. So here's kind of a 3D look at what that looks like. So here's the pipes coming from headworks, and then it comes into the structure, it goes underneath this part of the structure, it comes up, it flows over weirs, and then there's stop plates in this part of the structure that can split the flow either this way or this way. If the flow goes this way, it goes to the east plant, or sorry, the west plant. If it goes this way, it goes to the east plant. So if you see the structure, you don't see any of these pipes underground, but the top of it you can see. So kind of interesting, very interesting structure. It took myself a little bit of looking at plans to really understand how this thing works. Although plenty of other people in the plan understood how it worked, but being new to looking at it, I'm like, what in the heck is this thing doing? So, all right, so back to here. So the goal here is to rehabilitate the flow splitter. And as part of that, we wanted to also be able to construct a permanent bypass. Reason being there is that if we can use that bypass during construction, it will reduce the duration of bypassing that's needed during construction. And so that will help us keep the cost a little bit lower. And then the permanent bypass is also nice to have if you did need to do maintenance on the structure later. So schedule and status with that, we have the alternatives analysis is complete, and we're into final design. we're about 40% through the final design. As you can imagine, this requires some detailed sequencing and bypassing plans, because we can't just turn things off around here. The wastewater keeps coming. So we're hoping to bid this in March 2024 and complete construction in the middle of 2025. We expect this one total project cost is roughly $5 million. So I already looked at this one. I'm not going to get into all these details here. I only just want to mention that we looked at a lot of alternatives. So lots of kind of creative ways to try to bypass and you know, build a different structure and build a permanent bypass, all of that stuff. But the one that we ended up with is basically rehabilitating the existing structure here and building a permanent, this is basically a permanent bypass that we can use during construction and then also after construction if we needed to bypass the flow. So another aspect of this project is we're planning to uncover part of the structure so that we would have the ability to do easier inspections because it's pretty hard to see in there right now. And then also would have better venting so that we hopefully don't have that same issue again with hydrogen sulfide. All right. Now this is the last of the Pump Station 17 projects that we will talk about. So this is that fourth one. This is the last collection system project and design that I'm going to talk about, which is the Lower Badger Mill Creek Interceptor Phase 6. So this is that very last phase. The last of the projects of that interceptor that's been being built sequentially over time here. This is the missing link. It will start down here on the south end on Shady Oak Road, which is where phase 5 that we looked at earlier leaves off. And then it goes up here, it'll go through a ravine between some backyards of homes that are on Rolling Meadow Road and Nordell Hill Road. And then up here through some ag fields, and then up to Midtown Road, and Midtown Station is up here, and then we connect to the pipe that's further north that's not shown here. So this is a 30-inch interceptor, as I mentioned, from Shady Oak to Midtown. We're working on finalizing the alignment. We're hoping to begin the real estate process soon, possibly next month or in January. You should see a relocation order item coming through to get our easements. We're hoping to begin construction in mid-2024. You may recall that I did a presentation about this project back in January, which seems like it was yesterday, but it was actually a long time ago now. But as you recall, there's some challenges on this project. So we're going through some private property here, which, you know, is never a lot of fun. And understandably, people have a great deal of interest in that. And some of them have some resistance to that. In fact, we're working on there's some challenging terrain here, working with a intermittent channel. There's trees. There's some bedrock and karst bedrock issues with private wells in those in that bedrock formation. So there's kind of a lot to be worked out through here. Total project cost here is $4.9 million, and not positive yet, but may need to increase just because of all these design and construction challenges that we're looking at here. So here's a couple pictures from Eric Jelen. Shows a little bit more what the terrain's like through here, which, as I mentioned, will be challenging to build through. I also wanted to take a minute to explain some of the potential well impacts, because that's something that the residents are very interested in. So just to explain a little bit of background about that. So karst bedrock, and I'm not a geologist here, but I'll put my geology hat on for a moment. So karst bedrock is a weathered, fractured limestone bedrock, which means that groundwater flow through it happens kind of quickly, almost like a bunch of interconnected small straws or pipes. And some of the older homes in this area have wells that are screened through this fractured bedrock. So they're taking water actually from this shallow fractured bedrock. These wells actually don't meet current code, and they're actually, they're already vulnerable somewhat to contamination from septic fields or agriculture or other sources, regardless of our project. But in the context of our project, it means that if we're excavating or disturbing the bedrock, there's the potential for people to get cloudy water. And so we're looking, which we think would be a temporary impact, just kind of a during construction potentially thing. So we're currently looking at this further by better mapping out where that bedrock is. We're gathering additional data. If people are sharing their, we're asking people for information that they have on their wells, that kind of thing. So that, and it's really just a handful of wells that we're talking about here. So we're gathering additional data so that we can better plan out mitigation measures during construction here. All right. Moving out of design into Commissioner Murphy's got his hand up.
Yeah, just I couldn't help but notice the picture in the upper left-hand corner of the previous slide. If you could go back to that. It looks like there's somebody standing at the entrance to a cave.
It is a cave, yes. There is a cave here that's called Richardson's Cave. That's
right.
Basically just, we're not putting a pipe through the cave, it's just nearby. It kind of gives an indication of what this karst bedrock, this is basically the bedrock outcropping at the surface.
Mm-hmm. And does that intermittent stream then enter that cave?
It does not. Let me scroll back here. So the cave is like over here somewhere.
Okay.
And the stream actually kind of comes past. There's a berm that was sort of intended to keep the water from going into the cave.
Got it.
That's all kind of related with the well issues, because people have seen during high flow events, if water is getting into that cave, people have seen impacts on their wells at that time. So that's just telling you that all this bedrock is all connected and into, shallow wells in some places. So
thank you.
Yep. All right. On to planning projects. So these are ones that are a little bit further out on the horizon. Last but not least, just wanted to talk about a couple of these projects. And I'm just gonna touch on the first two. So the first one is heat and power improvements. That's a pretty significant investment there. And then the second one is the lagoon dike improvements, and that's got a lot of sort of interesting regulatory components. So the interesting regulatory components are why I have that one sort of shown in the yellow caution territory there. So, all right, so heat and power improvements. We're just starting on this project. And you might recall that this was slated to begin in 2024, but we had an item a couple of months back that asked the commission to move it into the 2023 budget so that we could start work on it because it's such a large project. So it's a long running project and we don't expect to be complete with construction until around 2029. But the first step, which is what we're working on now, is really to develop a facility plan, which is what we're looking to do, get working on next year. So we're currently working on a request for proposals to hire a consultant to help us with the facility planning step. So for background, this will expand on some of the work from the Energy Master Plan a couple years ago. And at the core, this, like all our projects here, it's an infrastructure replacement project to replace infrastructure at the plant that's nearing the end of its life. But the question is really, do we want to replace the infrastructure similarly to how it is now or not? With this one, the fundamental question that we really need to decide is, with this project, is about our biogas. So we generate biogas in our digesters, and currently we burn this gas in our engine generators to generate electricity, which we use at the plant. And we also use biogas in our engine blower. So we could continue to do all this, or we could refine our gas to pipeline quality, inject it into a gas pipeline for others to use, as you may have heard of RNG, which is renewable natural gas. And we would probably or possibly do this in partnership with others. So this could also be part of the federal renewable fuel standard program, where you basically sort of get involved with commodities trading of the resulting renewable identification numbers, or RNGs, or RINs, I guess it's called, RINs. So there's a lot of things to look at, a lot of things to look into here. And so that's why we really need to do some facility planning to get a better handle on what's the best course of action there. Then a related question is really how to handle the heat loop infrastructure in the plant. So right now we use heat recovered from the engine generators and the engine blower for a lot of other uses at the plant, including heating and cooling buildings, stroop bite dryers, other uses. So the question then is, if we're not doing cogen anymore, we still have to do all those heating things. And so what's the best way to do that? So there's a lot of assets involved in this and a lot of things to look at here. So, I'm not even going to go through this picture here, but I'm only just showing you the heat loops, kind of complicated heat loops at the plant. So just to show you that there's kind of a lot going on here. So
Lisa, can I do a quick jargon check?
Sure.
Cogen equals cogeneration equals generating electricity on site with the use of the gas that we produce. Just want to make sure that piece of language that may mean nothing to some folks in the audience is defined real quick.
Yeah, thank you.
Did I get it right? Make sure. Please correct me if I didn't get it right, but I think I did.
Nope, you got it. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So we look forward to that one. There's a lot of interesting work that's coming up with this one. All right. And then the last project that I'm going to talk about here, last but not least, is the Lagoon Dike Improvements Project. So the lagoons are located across Moreland Road from the plant. So in this picture, the plant is way over here, and then this is across Moreland Road. Here's the railroad tracks here, the Lussier Center and everything is down here. So many kind of know this area as sort of like the bird watching area, if you're a bird watcher. So commissioners that have been around longer term may recall that the Far Lagoon, or Lagoon 2, is actually a Superfund site. So it contains capped PCB containing biosolids. And commissioners may also recall that during the floods in 2018, the dike surrounding this area nearly overtopped by Nine Springs Creek, which is this creek that runs through here and runs up here and then ends up in Mud Lake, Yahara River chain up here. So in 2018, the water got pretty high on those dikes. And so that really showed kind of the need for this project. So we've been working on this for the past couple of years, and the scope here is really to increase the dike height around here, to increase resiliency from flooding, and to basically keep the Superfund site, keep what's in the Superfund site inside the area here. So we need to actually raise the dike maybe 2.5 feet in the lowest areas, which are down here at the south side. So as I mentioned, we've been working on this for a couple of years. We've completed survey, wetland delineations, geotechnical investigations, and we did a preliminary alternatives analysis, which basically told us that we needed to do more work in order to decide what would be the best alternative. So, and then in 2022, 2023, we continued with that analysis, but we also paused for a little while because the EPA was doing a 5-year review on the Superfund site. And so we wanted to make sure that nothing that was happening with that would affect the project. And so there was a little pause last year, or I guess earlier this year too. And so now we're continuing on with that alternatives analysis to really get the information that we need to make a good decision. We're hoping that in 2024, we move towards final design and permitting, and then hoping to build in 2025, this most critical part, which is the south berm. And then we would look at the other parts in 2026. So these parts are much simpler because we don't need to do nearly as much of a height increase, but this part on the south is the tricky part. So the challenges here are numerous regulatory challenges here. So, as you can imagine, the Superfund site, federal Superfund regulations, there's an awful lot to bite off there. And then we also have floodplain issues, wetland issues, potential PFAS issues, lots going on here. So this is one where there's going to be lots of regulatory steps that need to happen with both the feds and with our state and local permitting as well. So the other challenge here, it sounds easy, like hey, just build this berm higher. But the geotechnical challenges here are also significant. So I was actually out here when they did the geotechnical investigation and, looked at some of the soil samples, and basically the foundation soils here look like a milkshake, if you can imagine that. So looking at how to not overload those foundation soils is quite interesting. So the total project cost here is about $5 million we're expecting. And then I'm just going to show you kind of some of the alternatives that we're looking at here. So these are just sketches of the alternatives we've been looking closer at. So the top two here, and this is just a cross section of the berm as we're looking through here. So, and I don't expect you to read all the tiny print here, but I'll just kind of talk through here. And again, down on that south berm, we're looking at increasing the berm about 2.5 feet, which is easier said than done here. So the lightweight soil we're looking at, or the lightweight fill we're looking at, is potentially one alternative is a glass foam aggregate fill which would have soil over the top. And then the other lightweight fill alternative we're looking at is expanded polystyrene blocks, also with soil cover over at that. So the idea with the lightweight fill is to try to increase the height of the berm without increasing the load on the foundation, because the more you increase the load on the foundation, the more stability problems you have and the more settlement that you get. So that's the idea with the lightweight fill, to try to not increase the weight that much. And then the third alternative here is a vinyl sheet pile flood wall. So that's basically, if you've seen a kind of a seawall type of a vertical sheet piling, that's what that is. And this one would be vinyl. So basically just there so that when that creek level goes up, it provides a way that the creek isn't just overtopping the berm. So there you're not adding a lot of fill, you're not adding a lot of weight. So and it's looking like, as we're getting towards the end of this alternatives analysis, it's looking like this third one really might be the only viable alternative. So even with all this, fancy engineering of lightweight fills, there's still significant settlement that would happen. And then there's also some buoyancy constraints of this lightweight material that also could cause some issues. So it's looking like this is the direction we're headed here with alternative 3 with the vinyl sheet pile. So stay tuned on that one. Very interesting project. All right. And with that, I have no more projects to present. So thank you very much for the opportunity to give you an update on all of our capital improvement projects. And in the spirit of Thanksgiving next week, I showed a picture. I've got a picture here of some of our turkey friends at the plant, who I think this week should be very, very happy to be here rather than elsewhere. And I hope that all of you and all of them have a very nice holiday next week. And I'm happy to take any other questions that you guys might have about anything I talked about.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa. Very informative. Ezra, you got a question?
More of a comment than a question. Big thanks, Lisa. I asked for it and I got it. And I appreciate it. I really think, joking aside, I mean, I said this in the context of our passing the budget. Infrastructure, all of this stuff drives our budget, drives what our ultimate rate payers pay. I think for us on the commission to get a good handle on what that really looks like, and the incredible work that engineering staff and many more departments around the organization work on day to day, week to week, it's really valuable. When I look at the whole budget, this is like more than half and really closing in on 3/4 of what drives our budget annually. And the past, present, and the future of it, right? So ongoing construction, paying debt service on old projects, and then planning and designing ones that are to come down the road. So it's just huge. It's so important, and good for us to get grounded in what the depth and breadth of it looks like. How you keep it all in your head, Lisa, I'm amazed, but good work. Thank you, and really appreciate it.
Thanks, appreciate it. I too agree that it's really important for everybody to know what's going on here, and I think it's a nice opportunity to you guys. We give you bits and pieces, but it's great to give you a little bit more background sometimes.
Beth?
Hi, Lisa. Thank you. That was a great update, and I really appreciate it. Just a couple of things. One is, as somebody who uses the University Avenue quite a bit, I'm really looking forward to spring of 2024 and having that open again. Another thought, though, is on the liquid processing and looking at lower DO. I can see that could potentially be a pretty cost-intensive project coming down the road. Especially if we're thinking about making major treatment plant changes. So I'd like to hear regular updates on, that. I know we're in the information gathering phase now and getting data, and that's all great, but I'd really like to hear more about that as we go forward, especially as we're looking at a pilot plant and all of that. So that's just my only comment. So thank you again.
Sounds good.
In that vein, Lisa, how long would you expect the pilot plant on that project to run?
Let me look at my big schedule on my page here. I think we're looking to operate it, a year or something. I mean, I think we want a decent understanding of what's going on before we
Okay. And one thing I think to keep in mind is there are a number of projects or capacity improvements, particularly in the conveyance facilities. So I've been interested to know at some future point, probably maybe when closeout's occurring, as to what % of those go to the conveyance the conveyance charge. What %? Because some of a good % of some of those should be going to, because of capacity improvements, should be put back to the conveyance facility fee. And so I'd be interested to know, how that breaks out when the projects close out.
that I will have to dig into because I don't have a great handle.
Yeah, and then there may be some of
information.
those with we're doing large expenditures on the treatment plant, and we have the treatment plant connection charge too. So, okay. Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Lisa. That will move us to Paul and regulatory and legal.
Yeah. Yes, I have a relatively short report, but I would like to begin by thanking the commission for your comments earlier in the contract renewal. It continues to be a real privilege to work with everybody at the district and staff, and look forward to continuing to do so. So really appreciate your action earlier in this meeting. There is not a lot going on the regulatory side, but there are a few developments on the PFAS front. And actually, Vanessa's going to give us a quick little update because she's been following that for us.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, as Paul said, not a lot of updates on the regulatory front, but legislatively, the one thing I wanted to point out is that you have a regulatory review in your packet, but there's an update to what we provided in that regulatory review. And that's that the PFAS bill did pass the Senate yesterday. So it moves on to the Assembly and then would move on, if it passes the Assembly, would move on to the governor's desk. If you recall, that bill provides for municipal grant funding for some PFAS work, including sampling work and development of PMPs, if that's where municipalities are being required to go. There are also some provisions in that bill that limit the Department of Natural Resources Authority in the remediation redevelopment context. So that has raised some concerns. I think that it's possible it would get vetoed at the governor's office. We're not really sure where that'll go, but we'll certainly continue to follow it closely. Again, the primary concern for the district or relevance for the district would be grant programs for sampling and PMP development. Happy to take any questions on that or anything else that's in the regulatory review.
Okay, anybody have any questions? No. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Paul and Vanessa. And that will take us to the future meeting schedule. So the next meeting is the 30th of November, a week after Thanksgiving, and that will be in person. The meeting on the Our only meeting in December is on the 14th. That'll be virtual. And in between those two, there's an owner meeting that Amanda sent some information out back early in the month. So you can look at that. I think that was November 3rd. We got that. And then on the 11th of January, our first meeting, that will be in person. Then the second meeting in January will be virtual unless things change with that. So the next virtual meeting is in 2 weeks. And then the one after that will be the first meeting in January for in-person meetings. Other than that, the meeting in between is virtual. Okay. So laptop here. So any future agenda topics? Any other business? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
This is Commissioner Bookland. I'll move to adjourn for our meeting today.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Bookland. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Murphy.
Second by Commissioner Murphy. Motion by Bookland, second by Murphy to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? Oh, you can't. Motion carried. I don't think you can have a. Basically, I remember hearing once that if by a parliamentarian that when all business is finished, the meeting adjourned. You have no need for a motion to adjourn. So, okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Happy
Likewise.
Thanksgiving.
Take care.
Thank you.
Lisa.